Thank you for coming out to our Eclipse community meeting. It's nice to have some folks be proactive and come and join us to learn a little bit more about what we can expect as communities in a region next August. A lot of us have questions. There are some industries that have been talking about this for a while, that we're at least aware that an eclipse is going to happen and it's going to be a really big deal, but we don't really know why, and we don't know how many people we're talking about, and we're not sure how prepared we need to be. So this is our first chance to really begin to start that dialogue as a community, open up some communication channels, and allow us to really begin to be prepared for what's going to happen. Just a quick thank you to partners who have been helping us with this effort. The Greater Idaho Falls Chamber of Commerce, the City of Idaho Falls, the Post-Register, Bonneville County School District 91, thank you for the facility this evening. We've got representatives from the Bureau of Land Management, the U.S. Forest Service, the Department of Lands. Our astronomer, Jeff Bennett, will be speaking to us in just a moment. Thank you to eastidahonews.com for filming tonight's public meeting so that we can continue to share this message with other folks. And we just really appreciate you taking the time to come out here today. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Jeff Bennett, astronomer, teacher, writer, and he's going to tell us about why this is a big deal.
Thank you very much. It's really nice to see you all coming out here tonight. I'll just very briefly start by telling you how I ended up here. I live in Boulder, Colorado, and last year I was actually up in this area to speak at BYU Idaho and Idaho State, and they invited me to come back again this year to speak this week. And then I was also looking at the fact that there's this eclipse coming up, and where should I go to watch it? And I was like, wow, Idaho Falls is right on the path. So I thought, I'm going up there anyway for these other talks. Maybe that'd be a good place. I got in touch with Michelle, and she was gracious enough to say, sure, they'd like to have an astronomer help with coming up with some of the events that we'll do around it and so on. And so that's why I'm here today. And I would normally just start by telling you a bunch about the eclipse, but I want to save my voice a bit because I did 6 elementary school assemblies today. I've got 6 more tomorrow. And so instead of telling you about the eclipse, I'm going to take the risk of showing you the video I've been working on with just the caveat that it is not ready for prime time. This is a very early draft of the video, but it will still give you, I think, an idea of what we'll see. So this is about an 8-minute video, and then I'll talk to you a little bit more. August 21st, 2017 will be a very special Monday. If you live in the United States, it will be your first opportunity in almost 40 years to see a total solar eclipse without international travel. You don't want to miss it, and in this video, I'll tell you why. What would you think if the day suddenly began to turn into night, even while the sun was still high in the sky? It might sound a bit scary, and for most of human history, it was. As the sun began to disappear, some imagined it as a sign of angry gods, others of celestial monsters consuming the sun. According to one legend, in about 586 BC, 2 great armies were massing for battle when the sun began to disappear. They were so frightened that they laid down all their weapons, and when the sun returned, they signed a peace treaty and went home with no one hurt. Today you can have a different reaction to a total solar eclipse. You can applaud when the sun... You can look up in awe at the beautiful sight of the sun's corona, and you can marvel at the fact that events that terrified and mystified our ancestors are now so well understood that we can predict them thousands of years in advance. Hi, I'm astronomer and author Jeffrey Bennett, and I've created this video on behalf of Big Kid Science and Storytime from Space to help you prepare for this year's total solar eclipse. To witness this spectacular event, nicknamed the Great American Eclipse, you'll need to be located somewhere within this narrow yellow path that extends coast to coast from Lincoln City, Oregon to Charleston, South Carolina. Elsewhere in the United States, as well as in Canada, Mexico, and parts of Central and South America, you'll see a partial solar eclipse. To understand the difference, we need to talk briefly about how a solar eclipse occurs. A solar eclipse occurs when the moon passes directly between Earth and the sun, so that the moon's shadow falls on our planet. Notice that the moon's shadow consists of two distinct regions. If you are within the full shadow, called the umbra, the moon will completely block the sun, which means you'll experience a total solar eclipse. If you are within the much larger partial shadow, called the penumbra, then the moon will only partially block your view of the sun, and you'll see a partial solar eclipse. The closer you are to the central umbra, the more of the sun that will be covered. This photo shows the umbra and the darker portions of the penumbra over the Pacific Ocean, as seen from space by NASA's Deep Space Climate Observatory during a total solar eclipse in March 2016. A time-lapse sequence of a few hours would show the shadow moving west to east as a result of Earth's rotation and the moon's orbital motion. The shadow moves across the face of the Earth quite fast, typically at a speed of more than 1,000 miles per hour. This animation shows the shadow path for our upcoming eclipse. You can see totality only if and when the dark central umbra passes directly over you. The duration indicator shows that totality will last about 2 to 2.5 minutes along the center line of this path. You will see a partial eclipse within the lighter, partial shadows. These photos and percentages show the approximate portion of the sun that will be blocked along each path at the time of greatest eclipse. Let's turn now to watching the eclipse. No matter where you are watching from, the excitement will begin when the partial shadow first begins to block your view of the sun. You must never look directly at the sun, so you have two basic choices for observing the eclipse. First, you can use projection, which can be as simple as poking a small hole in a sheet of cardstock and holding it so sunlight comes through the hole and forms a small image on another sheet or the ground. In fact, almost any small opening will act as a pinhole projector. Here, we see multiple projections of the partially eclipsed sun, each created by a small gap through which sunlight is passing through the leaves of a tree. You can create larger images of the sun by using binoculars or a telescope set up backwards so that sunlight enters through the lenses and shines out through the eyepieces. This photo shows the double image you'll get through binoculars. Be careful though, not only must you never look through the binoculars or telescope at the sun, but the projected light is so concentrated that it can be very hot. Alternatively, and more fun, you can get special eclipse glasses that allow you to look safely at the sun in the sky. Just remember that you should never look toward the sun without these glasses, with one exception. If you are lucky enough to be on the umbral path, you can and should remove the glasses during your brief minutes of totality. Returning to our map, this brings us to why I hope you'll try to be on the path of totality for the Great American Eclipse. The photos here may make it look like there's not that much difference between, say, a 90% partial solar eclipse and a total solar eclipse. But in fact, it is literally the difference between day and night. Even a 99% solar eclipse still allows enough light through to keep it daylight and keep it unsafe to look at the sun without your eclipse glasses. In contrast, under clear skies on the path of totality, you'll get an experience you'll never forget. The partial phase will begin a little over an hour before the big moment. You won't notice much at first, but as the partial phase progresses, the light around you will begin to dim and the temperature will begin to drop. Animals behave strangely, with bird songs going silent, while nocturnal owls and bats awaken. As totality approaches, in the distance you may see the moon's full shadow coming toward you across the landscape. When the last rays of sunlight disappear behind the moon, you will see the spectacular diamond ring effect, which tells you it is safe to remove your eclipse glasses. With the sun's visible disk completely blocked by the moon, you'll be able to see the sun's outer atmosphere, or corona, which is otherwise far too faint to see. The coronal light will give the sky a twilight glow, but it will still become dark enough for you to see planets and bright stars. The only thing that can dampen the experience is clouds, but even then, you may be lucky enough for the eclipsed sun to peek through. This photo comes from an eclipse I saw in 1999. It was so cloudy that we saw virtually nothing of the partial phases, but just as totality began, the clouds opened up to give us this spectacular view. So if at all possible, I hope you will find a way to be on the path of totality on August 21st. If you are lucky enough to live on this path, you can just stay put. All you'll need are clear skies, an unobstructed view of the sun, and your eclipse glasses. If you live elsewhere, then at the risk of upsetting school administrators or employers, I urge you to make the day a personal holiday. Because the eclipse will be on a Monday, you can make it a 3-day weekend, giving you plenty of time to find your way to the path, even if traffic is very heavy. The websites listed here offer detailed maps that you can use to plan your trip. If you just can't get there, you should still get a set of eclipse glasses and spend an hour or two outside enjoying the partial eclipse, and then start planning ahead for a future opportunity to see totality, the next of which will come for the United States in 2024. Finally, while you can experience this August totality from any place along the eclipse path, I hope some of you will join me in Idaho Falls, Idaho, where I'll be helping to host talks and other events over the weekend before the eclipse. And if you want to learn more about how and why eclipses occur, please continue on to the second video in this set. In closing, I invite you to check out some of my books, including my latest titles from Big Kid Science, iHumanity for Children, and A Global Warming Primer for Grown-Ups. I also encourage you to check out Storytime from Space, a program that sends books and science demonstrations to the International Space Station, with videos of astronauts reading and demoing, posted freely for anyone to use. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you have found it useful, and welcome your comments. And we're just going to plug in the other projector here, or computer. August 21st, 2017. There we go. All right, so just to go over a couple of more things, hopefully that gave you the general picture. So this is being called the Great American Eclipse because it's the first eclipse here since 1979, and when I say here, I mean over the United States, anywhere. In any given location, an eclipse only happens, total eclipse only happens every 400 years on average. So these are spectacular events to get to see. This is a detail of that map that you saw. And you can see it starts up here in Oregon, goes out through Charleston, and we're over here somewhere, right? I can't see that well with that on this screen, but that's the path. You have to be on that yellow path in order to experience the total eclipse. Otherwise, you just get the partial eclipse, and you're lucky enough to be on it. Here's an animation showing you the detail over this region here, right? So here you can see Idaho Falls, the black dot right there. And the shadow has an oval shape because of the way it's projecting onto Earth, because of Earth's curvature. And so you can see the totality begins right there, 11:33, and it lasts 1 minute and 41 seconds as this shadow passes over, and you'll see when we come out of it over there. And you can see, even though we're not that close to the center line, the difference between being right on the center line and down here is not actually all that great. I think it's about 20 seconds or so. So rather than try to fight traffic to drive up to the center line for those extra 20 seconds, which I would do if there wasn't going to be any traffic, but since I think there will be, I think being right here is going to work great. And you can see the partial eclipse begins at 10:15, totality is at 11:33, the partial phase ends at 12:58. And just to give you a sense, it's really exciting all through the partial phase up until that moment of totality when everybody goes wild. Then when the sun reappears, after that it's not that exciting anymore because you know, you've seen the big show, and also there's an interesting effect with your eyes, which is that as it gets darker and darker, your eyes dark adapt, and then you have that moment of a couple minutes of nighttime, basically. But then when the sun comes back out, your eyes immediately light adapt again, and so it doesn't seem as spectacular on the outside as the inside. But one of the things to think about right away is that that means right as totality ends, or the people who stay for the whole thing, they're hungry for lunch right now. There's our map again showing the location here for Idaho Falls, and one of the things that I want you to notice about this is that basically if you live in Utah, this is the easiest place to get to. 3 million people live in Utah. This is going to have more publicity than any astronomical event, any Mars mission, any Hubble Space Telescope thing you've ever seen. This event is going to have. I know Michelle said she was estimating 50 to 60,000 people coming up this way. Maybe I actually would guess it'd be 10 times that number. I wouldn't be surprised to see a sixth of the population of Utah deciding they want to be on the path. Now, being on the path doesn't necessarily mean here. It can be anywhere up in here or here, right? But that means they're probably going to come through here, and you're the only place with lodging and restaurants. And then there's the people coming from all around the country and the world. Now, because of that path going all the way across the United States, you know, for most of the country, there will be, other than Utah, there's going to be other places that are closer to go to. And so if they're driving for a couple hours, of course, they're going to go to those closer places. But if you're a farther distance away, where you're thinking I might have to fly to the eclipse or whatever, well, then you're going to say, if I'm going to that kind of effort, what's my chance of actually seeing it? And as I mentioned in the other video, the only thing that'll get in the way is clouds. And this graph shows you cloud prospects across the United States from, this is the west coast over here, Oregon, across to the east coast. More means more probability of clouds. And what you'll notice is that once you get past like Wyoming here, Casper, the probability of clouds gets pretty high, 70% or so. So all those people, they're going to need a little bit of luck to see it. Idaho Falls is right here at these minima of the curve. So you've got basically the best cloud prospects in the country also, really close, a few other places along here. So if you're traveling from far away, this Jackson here basically is the place to go. I have a friend who's running an eclipse trip in Grand Teton National Park. He booked up the lodge there several years ago. His trip's been sold out for a couple of years, and it's 90% Europeans coming to see this. So you get a little bit of a sense of what's coming. The requirements I already went over in the other video, pretty simple, with the one that you really need to think about here being the eclipse glasses, because you need them. In bulk, and when I say in bulk, I mean tens of thousands, the price gets down to like 25 cents a pair. And if you're a merchant, it's really nice because you can sell them for a couple bucks a pair. But you probably want to make sure that every resident of the town has a pair at some way to begin with. People coming in, they may have gotten stuff already on their own. Mentioned that we're going to do some speaking events. That's my main role, so I'll be doing some speaking. Nick Schneider, who is a co-author of mine on a textbook that we write, and he is one of the leaders of the current Mars mission that's went into orbit of Mars last year. His wife, Erica Ellingson, is another well-known astronomer and also an expert in Anasazi astronomy, the ancient stuff that's been done. And Alvin Drew, in that other video it mentioned Story Time from Space. He's the astronaut who started Story Time from Space. If you give me a second here, I want to show you this because Alvin Drew, you might recognize him there. Very few people know his name, but I almost 100% guarantee that you've seen him before on TV, because here's his commercial. Uh-oh, wait. Do we have can I hook up the sound here? Is that it?
I think that's it,
Yeah, that sounds like it. Let me take it back to the beginning.
I woke up every day in the Air Force thinking I've got the best job in the world. Airplanes, jets, propeller planes, rockets, spaceships, starships. We left the surface of the Earth and went somewhere else on an adventure that just captured my imagination. The opportunities that the Air Force can offer are boundless. When opportunity knocks at your door, be bold, be courageous in following that dream, step across that threshold and into that new adventure. My name is Colonel Alvin Drew, and I am an American Airman.
So he'll be out here for the eclipse also, and he'll be doing some talks with us as well. This slide is the opportunities. So one of the opportunities is I'm hoping this will be a real educational opportunity for the community. That's why we're going to do these talks. Hope we'll get great turnout. lots of people coming, and we'll try to teach you something not just about the eclipse, but about astronomy, the space program, and other things. Other opportunities that you have. If you're in the lodging business, or if you're not in the lodging business, but you happen to have a house or an apartment where you live, somebody's going to want to stay there. So Airbnb, VRBO, all these kinds of things. Make a couple $100 sharing your space with someone who's really desperate to get it. Because I know most of the hotels are already fully booked up, and I personally know probably 1,000 people who want to come here. So if you get that lodging opportunity out there, they'll be coming. Merchandising. I've never tried this, but friends of mine who do this say people coming to see eclipses buy everything. Mugs, t-shirts, keychains, the whole gamut. So, I was in Idaho Falls for the total eclipse or whatever you want to put on it. Media, there should be lots of media attention for this nationally. Then when it actually comes to Eclipse Day, there's the question of where the media will show up. I don't know. One of the things I mentioned to Michelle that I just happened across as a factoid recently by accident is that Martha Raddatz, who was the debater of the moderator of the last second presidential debate, she works for ABC News, apparently she grew up here. So who knows, maybe she'll bring ABC News out here to be following the event. Education. Anybody here from schools? Okay, good. I hope with the school districts, school, I understand, starts the following Monday. So what I would encourage every school to do is open up your playground and invite every student, parent, teacher, community person to come join you on the playground. I mean, you don't have to be with a group to see the eclipse, but it's a lot more fun. And then comes the challenges, which I think is what most of the rest of the time is going to be focused on. Traffic. I told Michelle the story of an eclipse that I went to see in 1995 just north of Bangkok, Thailand. And, don't be thinking third world roads. This was a 10-lane superhighway. And to go to the eclipse, we went a couple days ahead of time and toured up or in the area up there. And that drive out of Bangkok to the reservoir where we were watching the eclipse took about 40, 45 minutes. The way home after the eclipse took 10 hours. There were, just at the one site where I was, at this reservoir, they estimated 200,000 people were watching, all driven up from Bangkok. And that was just one of, dozens and dozens of places where people could go see the eclipse. And that's in a country where most people don't have cars. So you're going to have an enormous amount of traffic, and that'll be a challenge to deal with. They're all going to want to park somewhere. Maybe someone will be trying to go to the midline of the path and park along the roadside. I don't know what that's going to look like. Food and water, it's August, it's going to probably be hot. So those are big challenges to make sure people have what they need. Bathrooms, I don't know, you should probably get porta potties from everywhere or something. EMT, because with that heat you might have heat issues and so on. And the last couple things I'll say, like I said, I'm here originally, the first reason for my trip was to speak at Idaho State and BYU, and my one tomorrow night at Idaho State is at 7 to 8:30 p.m. in the physics building, room 140, so you're all invited to come down there. My one up at BYU on Thursday at 2 o'clock is also technically open to the public, but I know from last year, because they have so many students coming in, there won't be any seats available. So you might have a chance to get a seat down at Idaho State tomorrow night. And that's it. Those are my books. And I'll turn it over to Michelle, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have for me as we go along.
Thank you. It's okay to clap. That's awesome, right? So while we're changing things up, Jeff did actually touch on some of the things that we wanted to talk about and make sure that everybody is aware of. And so the first of which is opportunities. Of course, Jeff mentioned some of the things that you could be aware of when we're talking about alternative lodging. Okay, we know that sometimes Airbnb and some of those things are bad words, but when you're talking about the amount of people that are going to come into this region, we need to be having conversations about Where can people park RVs? Where can we open up tent camping? And also being aware that if we don't have them available, people are going to do it anyway. And so we need to be prepared for those kinds of consequences as well. Merchandising and supply. I really want to make sure that our businesses begin thinking about this. If you think about what Idaho Falls looks and feels like for the 4th of July, and magnify that. What does traffic look like? What do restaurant lines look like? What do gas stations look like? We want to make sure that our merchants understand that if I'm a service station owner, I better make sure that my tanks are full, and I've ordered extra bottled water, and I'm prepared for challenges for vehicles getting in and out. We've talked a little bit about that Idaho Falls has one free RV dump station. What happens if there's a line there? How often does that get dumped? How much can that really hold? I mean, there's some of these questions that we have not ever really had to think about, and we honestly may never have to think about them again. But we really want people to just begin to think about these ideas. Events can be very fun. Jeff talked about lots of opportunities where people could come in and have viewing events. Stadiums. I see our Chuckers folks here. Ravston Stadium, Chuckers Stadium. You know, where can you gather people where they can have clear line of sight and viewing? Something that I didn't realize until 10 minutes ago is that we had been in our mind thinking, okay, the eclipse is going to start at 10:15 and it's going to be 2.5 minutes and then we're going to be done. No. Now I realize it's going to start at 10:15 and we're not going to get done till 1 o'clock. So now we're not talking about 5 minutes, now we're talking about 3 hours. That's a whole different story that we didn't understand. Thank you for enlightening us. And I don't know about the rest of you, but when you think about, in my mind, I thought 40 to 60,000 people felt like a lot of people. And when Jeff told me, oh, no, you have the potential to have a lot more than that, I can't even get my mind around it. I couldn't get my mind around 60,000 people. So we want you to start really getting outside of the box. How can your service organization leverage this opportunity as a one-time, once-in-a-lifetime fundraiser? What might that look like? So really think about the opportunities. But what I want to do is take some time and turn the time over to, who's next on our agenda? I've already lost track. Carrie. Carrie and Donna, we're going to talk a little bit about communication. And then we're going to talk some more about challenges, as Jeff has alluded to, some things like traffic, public safety, and talk some more about that. So Carrie Hammond from the City of Idaho Falls and Donna Nims from the Post-Register are going to talk about communications.
Good evening. So I'm Carrie Hammond. I'm the Public Information Officer for the City of Idaho Falls. And as I've been out and about talking to people about Eclipse, you know, people ask me, how big is this? I basically tell them, well, it's kind of like the 4th of July on steroids. You know, some of the challenges, what do we have with the 4th of July is communication, getting all the information out to the public so that they can stay informed. Well, this just is going to be amplified. There's going to be 3 different goals we're going to be looking at. One is to make sure that we're communicating internally with our city officials, our county officials, our different stakeholders, our hospitals, our different businesses, our schools, making sure they're informed so they know what's going on. 2, informing our communities just about the eclipse, the events, what to expect. What are we doing about it? How are we planning? What are the resources? Kind of the same information we provide for the 4th of July, for example, but more, because we have to look at this regionally, not just locally. What happens if a visitor comes to Idaho Falls and there's no lodging? What if they go to Rexburg and there's nothing there? Where are we going to direct them to stay? So those are some of the things we need to start looking at. As far as communication tools, we've already started to work on this. Thanks to the Post-Register, they have set up a website. Do you have that up? Okay, so if you guys can take note of this information and some of the communication tools that we already have set up, that website, they're also going to have an app that goes along with it so people can have access to information on their mobile devices. We set up a Facebook page. You can search it by entering in Eastern Idaho Eclipse. We'll have information on there as well. And then also, I'll have you hit getting the information to the post register. But as far as the city of Idaho Falls is concerned, how are we getting information out into the community? We're going to use the resources that we use right now. So we have great working relationships with the local media outlets. We also have, keep in mind, the city of Idaho Falls is in the process of coming out with our new website in January. With that website, we'll have greater capabilities for notifying the public. So stay tuned for more information to come out, and you can sign up for different notification channels through our new website. So watch for that at the end of January, 1st of February. Encouraging you to get this information out to your different communities and start to share this information. And I'll turn the mic over to Post Register, and she can give you more information as far as the website and the app is concerned.
Thank you, Carrie. I'm Donna Mims with the Post Register. We do have a placeholder website up and live today, eieclipse.com. Thank you very much. And the navigation that you see across the top is just the starting point of what we expect to provide here. Information on events, safety, camping locations, any lodging that's available, emergency contact and healthcare, special savings, which is an advertising opportunity, and then more contact information. On both the events tab and on our contact tab right now, we do have a form that you can use to please tell us if you are planning an event in association with the eclipse. Anything from a sale at your store to an all-night party to a concert, anything that's going on in the community, if you can fill out that form and send it to us. The form actually will send an email to the Post Register about the newsroom and then on the website, as well as a copy to Carrie. And we will use this to just make sure everybody knows everything that's going on. We'll take information here and populate a calendar within the eieclipse.com site and on the postregister.com so folks will know what's going on. You can also use this form if you have questions. If you have a question, somebody else probably has the same question, so please fill the form out, ask us, and if we don't have the answer, we will get that answer to you and get it posted, respond to you, and make that resource available to the whole community. We will be also leveraging some of the publications that we already have in place, like we do 101 Things to Do in Eastern Idaho. We're going to include a whole section on the eclipse on that, and that goes out to about 50,000. We print about 50,000 copies twice a year on that. So lots of opportunities to get the word out about anything that you are planning.
The other thing I would add to that too is that we specifically chose the name Eastern Idaho Eclipse. These resources are available to the entire region. So if you're in Arco, if you're in Rigby, if you're in Rexburg and you've got events going on or information, please send that. We'll load all of that information here so that when visitors come and visit our community, they can all find the information that they're looking for. So on that note, we're going to turn things over to Chief Hanneman from the Idaho Falls Police Department to talk about public safety.
Fire.
I was looking at Chief McBride.
Yeah, hello, I'm Dave Hanneman, the fire chief here in Idaho Falls, and really what I'm just here to tell you is that we are, emergency services are planning for this. We have a regional incident management team that goes from Pocatello all the way up to Salmon. And so we're taking a regional approach to this as far as our planning for emergency services, including our county and Jefferson and Teton and Madison counties in that band, so we can kind of plan together. We're just now starting our planning efforts. Obviously, as what was said earlier, is that we don't know exactly how many people we're going to get. Our plans might change a little bit according to your predictions. So, but we also want to understand what of the cities may have a venue per se. In other words, a place where folks are going to gather, and then we can plan around that. So rest assured, we're planning for that, for the heat, how to deal with traffic patterns and making sure everybody's safe, and where everybody's going to be. So that'll be our role. Next up is the BLM. Is somebody here from the BLM?
Use that laser. Hi, my name is Monica Zimmerman, and I, excuse me, am an outdoor recreation planner with the Bureau of Land Management. And our office started receiving phone calls about a year ago from a tour group in Europe that is planning a trip to come over to view the eclipse. And so, you know, outside of the city limits, this map is a little hard to see, but here's Idaho Falls right down here. And the kind of the center line of the path of totality kind of goes right across BLM managed lands. This is North Manam Butte right here. And so some of these tour groups that have contacted us are very focused in wanting to try to set up something, a staging area in this area to view the eclipse for their tour that they're participating in. So we're starting to plan, trying to figure out exactly, you know, how many people. We don't know what to expect, but we do know there are going to be some tour groups that are coming to view the eclipse on public lands. We've also received a lot of phone calls from just individuals that want to come out and view the eclipse. So here's a little bit of a close-up picture. Here's North Manam Butte right here, and then this is Highway 33, and kind of the center line comes across this way. If I'm correct, you probably...
I don't know exactly.
Yeah,
Sure
so at least what the maps that we have seen. And so west of North Manam Butte, these are all BLM managed lands. There are a lot of dirt trails out there, 2-track trails. So as far as, you know, we're trying to plan for, you know, what type of use are we going to get people utilizing those trails. We're working with our fire program as far as the concern related to wildfire. If we're having additional individuals out in this area, this is all grass, sagebrush, and so some of those are things we're planning for. We're also working with our law enforcement group, you know, similar to the city as far as how to accommodate the traffic and what the potential may be. Also, if those of you that may be familiar with this area, like I said, this is all dirt, 2 tracks, and so it really can't accommodate many large vehicles such as tour buses, like what we got called on a year ago. So there's only a few places on public lands that could actually accommodate big tour groups. So I've been contacted so far by a couple that want to have 5 or 6 tour buses in a staging area to view the solar eclipse. And then once again, we've received numerous phone calls from individuals that want to view it. So we're trying to plan to figure out where we could accommodate commercial tour groups, and then also having the extra staff available for individuals that may be, this is a popular place to hike, North Manam Butte. So people have called about actually hiking up the butte to view the eclipse from there. So we're trying to plan as well, but once again, not sure what exactly to expect. So.
Question? What, the North Manam Butte, what would be the difference in the view between the North and the South Manam Butte?
Well, the North Manam Butte is public land, so the public can go up there and view it. There's a trail which you can hike up the butte and surf the butte, whereas the South Butte is private land, and so you would have to, you know, work with the private landowners on South Butte. So that is the difference. The features are pretty much the same, but the difference is public land versus the private land.
Okay, one other question. What is the view going to look like if you're out on the flat ground versus on top of the North Manam Butte?
I wouldn't know how to answer that. Would you?
Yeah, there's really no difference. You know, you're looking at the sun at 11:30 for totality. It's going to be pretty high in the sky. As long as you have a clear view of the sky, you'll see it. You know, what'll be the only difference will be what you see around you. Like if you're up high, like I talked about that shadow that you can see coming across the landscape as the totality approaches. If you're up high and have a better, further horizon, you'll see more of that kind of thing. But
Somebody described something maybe a little
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing that I'm talking about, that seeing that shadow coming across. So and as it passes over you, you'll see the light on the other side of it. Yes, so definitely being up high, you'll get a more interesting landscape view, but for the eclipse itself, you know, what's going on in the sky, there won't be any difference.
And how wide is that band?
That band around here, I think, is about 80 miles wide. So it's fairly wide. You know, so that's the good news, is people don't have to be right here. They can be anywhere in this. It's just that the way the roads lead, where the lodging is, it's going to be a lot easier for people to be here.
Of course, we are at our point for public Q&A. We have lots of folks here in the audience that can do our best to answer questions. We want to know as much about what your questions are so that we can begin to gather correct information for you. So, question right here.
Yes, I'm assuming the Post-Register owns the graphic with the East Idaho Eclipse. Is that something that would be shared for merchandising and other options, such as chambers?
It is ours, and I actually have that question out to our designer that designed it for us. Definitely for informational, promotional purposes, yes, I need to answer the merchandising question. So as soon as I do, then we can get that information out to you. Right here?
Yeah, I have two questions. One's kind of serious. Will there be any volunteers for public safety? Will the organization be able to handle that aspect?
Yeah. Yes. Actually, as I was sitting there, I was thinking about that we ought to probably start looking at getting volunteers and training them, because we're going to have a lot of traffic issues. We're going to have trespassing. We're going to have people parking all over the place. We're going to have people crashing into each other because they're looking somewhere when they're driving. It's probably going to be unimaginable, I think. And we're going to have our hands full all summer long with all the events.
You had a second
The other
question?
question, you mentioned maybe 500,000 people from Utah coming up here. I'm curious exactly how far north this total eclipse occurs. Will that get to Yellowstone, West Yellowstone?
It goes over Grand Teton. I can't remember if it goes right over Yellowstone or not. Jackson is right, you know, perfectly positioned as well.
It doesn't hit Yellowstone.
It doesn't hit Yellowstone, okay. But yeah, it's only about 80 miles wide, so it's that pretty narrow path. And you know, I don't want to frighten you with that 500,000 number. That's a wild guess. You know, it's pulled from the air, not anything that I could base on statistics. But yeah, I think, you know, we do anticipate in the astronomy community, we're having all kinds of meetings about how to leverage this event just because of the media attention it's going to get anyway. Just to give you an example, going back to '95 when I saw that eclipse in Asia, and another one I went to in Europe in '99. I mean, for a couple weeks before the event, you could not turn on the news without hearing about it on any channel. You know, now with social media and everything else that didn't exist back then, people are going to know about this and they're going to want to be here. The fact that it's a Monday and people might be at work or schools starting, like down in Colorado where I live, unfortunately our schools start, so like my daughter can't come because she's got to be in school that day. She's got a 5-day trip that starts, and she can't, if they're on a river the whole time, so she can't miss that one day without missing the whole thing. It's really terrible. I tried to get the whole school to change their schedule, and they wouldn't do it. But, you know, we are actually talking, people are around the country are talking to school districts about changing their calendar so that their students can see this. So who knows what the actual number will be, but the potential for that enormous kind of number is there.
What are the best type of glasses to view this with? Polaroid or just normal?
No, you have to have those special eclipse glasses. They are, basically, if you put a pair of those eclipse glasses on, you see nothing, except for when you look directly at the sun, you'll see a yellow disc there. They're actually a welder's grade glasses that you're using. Anything else, and you will blind yourself. So not any kind of ordinary sunglass, it has to be those eclipse glasses. But the good news is those materials are cheap enough that people make these things at very low prices. I should also mention, there's really like, I think 2 companies that make the eclipse glasses in bulk, And if you're ordering them in bulk, they'll put whatever logos on them you want. They'll stamp them with your website, your business, things like that. So, you know, you can use it as a promotional thing too. You got some?
This is from Grand Teton National Park, what they're selling.
You have a question right now?
Is the
comes off.
The organization I represent is planning on buying a couple thousand of these, but does anybody else have plans for that?
We've actually heard that, I know that hotels in town are, the museum is, I believe that Idaho Falls Magazine may be talking about doing something with a special publication they're doing, but like Jeff said, we've got 50,000 people just in the city of Idaho Falls, and everybody's, you know, how many people per household, how many visitors are coming in for outside. I don't know that we could ever order enough that we might feel like we had too many.
How many is the city buying, or the chamber?
We honestly haven't made that decision yet either. Because again, I was thinking, you know, 40, 60,000 people across the whole region. Wow, I was really wrong. So. But the recommendation is to order at least 6 months in advance, so in order to be prepared. Any other questions? Yeah.
In your experience, how in advance do people start filing in? Just a couple of days, in a week?
That's a good question. You know, unfortunately, the general tendency of people is to think I'll just drive up that morning because it's only 3.5 hours from Salt Lake City, right? And I'm really worried about that because with traffic they won't make it. So I'm hoping that we can be encouraging people to plan to come spread out over that weekend. I mean, one of the reasons we're having the weekend of events and you know the talks that we're going to do over that weekend is to try to convince people to get here earlier to do these other things, because that will spread things out. But then that increases the issue of finding lodging places to stay for them.
Thank you.
One of the things to add, the Rotary Club moved the duck race to that weekend. So we also have that happening on the Saturday. So they'll have that event going on. We may anticipate some folks that are going to come in on Saturday, spend a few nights, and then leave after it on Monday. One of our concerns also, if you think about what happens on the 4th of July, we're very good with that now as far as we close down the off-ramps, and you'll notice that people getting ready to watch the 4th of July, the fireworks, they start sitting on the grass on our on-ramps and off-ramps there. Well, we don't want that to happen here. We need to find a place that's safe for them because we can't obviously have freeway traffic going and people running across the freeway or being on the sides of the freeway. So those are some concerns that we have to think about where we're going to put everybody in, what's going to be available for camping and things like that all needs to be taking place. And there's a lot of next steps for us when it comes to that as far as getting our elected officials figuring out what kind of support we need to do in our whole region.
You mentioned that there are a couple of activities or events that are current, that are being planned or being talked about. Can you give us a sense of what some of those things are?
You know, the conversations that have been had up until this point about events are very, very preliminary. As you know, in addition to the Eclipse this summer, the Blue Angels are also coming this summer. So everybody's trying to figure out how can they manage resources, where can they hold events, how can they feasibly put on new activities. And I can speak for the Chamber and say we're in the same boat. We recognize that there needs to be things that happen in the community, but if private industry and other organizations are going to step up and fill some of that void, we want to hear what's happening in the community to be able to best support that. I think the city is probably in the same boat where we're really just trying to get a sense of who has plans and what are they doing and how can we plan to be complementary. The one piece that Jeff alluded to that we do have kind of sitting out here is that Jeff and Alvin Drews, and Erica, and Nick and Erica, thank you. They will be here. They have offered to speak. We are ready to plug them into some events and have some speaking opportunities. We've not yet decided from our perspective what that's going to be. Yes.
I just wanted to speak on a couple of issues. First, I know personally of a number of people from other regions and also internationally that are coming just partially to this location because of Yellowstone Park, Grand Teton National Park. They're planning on being here for the week before, and if they're any indication, it's not a 2-day event. The other thing that I wanted to mention was just with the museum. We're actually hosting an exhibit on space during that period of time, and JPL and NASA contacted us, and we are one of the 4 official observation sites for NASA in Idaho Falls, Idaho, and it will be on their sites. They're projecting hundreds of thousands of people. So just to remind you. And we'll have, like you say, as far as events, there are 3 individuals coming from NASA and JPL doing the same sort of thing that you're talking about. So there will be a variety of events, hopefully around the city, to offer some of these.
I'll have to find out who they are and get in touch so that we coordinate.
It's Kevin Hussey, Alice Wesson, and Jane Houston Jones. Thanks.
The Idaho Falls truckers have also been contacted by folks from NASA. In fact, we just had a conference call with them, and we are going to be filling out paperwork that also gives us the official NASA site designation as well. So Melaleuca Field, we'd like to see be a major player in this and be kind of epicenter event location for when this all happens. So we've got our thinking caps on about how we can make this a big event at Walmart.
The other thing that Jeff mentioned that will happen organically is that there are the eclipse chasers and the astronomers and the folks that will be flocking into communities like this, that when viewing areas are designated or when events are happening, those folks are also going to be there and naturally, like Jeff does, want to be able to share what they know with other people who are interested. So you are going to have just naturally some people who are there that want to share and educate the community. Any other questions? Yes.
With that large population, is there consideration for having residents offer their homes or offer lodging in residential areas? Is that something considered? Or?
Well, there are programs to allow that, but does anybody officially want to speak to that?
That's a zoning problem.
Let's just say we are aware and we're in discussions to try to figure that out more, so we'll have more information at a later time on that.
I lived in Utah during the Olympics, and we rented out our 1,200 square foot townhome for $10,000 for 5 days. And a lady made $3,000 above that. And I know that.
Just to give you another little sense on that, so I have an email list for space news things that I send out to people. It's just mostly people who've known me for some reason or other. So it's 1,000 people, which is not very many compared to what a lot of people have. But basically what I've been hearing is every one of those 1,000 people would like to come here, since I'm going to be here with my friends, and they can't find lodging. So I said I'd get back to them when I heard about whatever you're doing. So if you post that kind of opportunity up on that website, if you can figure out a way to zone it, make it legal, yes, you can.
There's still a lot of lodging. I don't know why your friends are having problems. There's a lot.
Well, one of the things, this is kind of a separate issue that we talked about a little bit, but one of the issues is like a lot of the hotels, if they do have any lodging left, they're asking for minimum stays that are longer than people want to come for, so.
Margaret?
Can you talk a little bit about Swiss sidelines? I mean, if you can see the sun between that sort of 10:30 to 1 o'clock, does that mean you've got clear sidelines, or are there other issues that come into play with
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And that time of year, the sun's pretty high in the sky at that point. So, but in terms of like doing something that I do think that it'd be great to do something in a stadium. I mean, in terms of media, it's a great photo op to have, you know, whatever, 10,000 people or more in a stadium all watching together, cheering together, and so on. But you just have to make sure that any seats that don't have that sight line are blocked off so nobody's really mad at you or something, right?
Anybody else? Going once, going twice, yes.
I was just going to say, for the National Forest, you can reserve a camp spot 6 months in advance. So we would probably anticipate February 21st, people starting to reserve camp sites in the Palisades District or the Teton Basin District at that time.
How long again is the total eclipse?
So the partial phase starts around 10:15. Totality here is a minute and 40 seconds or so, starting at 11:33.
I don't know if anybody's asked this, but are you corresponding like with the people in Rexburg? I know that at that time students won't be on campus or in school, so are like the apartment complexes doing anything to maybe rent out rooms for a short time or anything like that?
That's a really great question, and I had not heard that. I don't know what Rexburg is working on for that perspective, but that's a great insight. Thank you.
What's the question?
Sorry, the question was, were we coordinating with Rexburg because BYUI students will not have come back for the break between summer and fall semesters, and would there be some temporary housing opportunities that might be available then? And I don't know that answer. Yes?
Another question.
Do we know how Mackey and Arco, I'm from Mackey, of course, Mackey and Arco, how we're in that path coming across the desert?
Pretty darn close.
Yeah, you're gonna be close.
Yeah.
It's further north, more towards Chalice. Maybe north of Mackey.
So would we estimate partial but not total? Arco will run.
You have to be in that strip to be total, otherwise you're partial.
So, that's a good question.
You mentioned 1 minute and 40 seconds here. What's the dead center? How long is that?
2 minutes and 20 in Rigby.
So there you go, and the maximum is about 240 further out in like Missouri. But so yeah, so you know, again, if all else was equal, I would go to the center line. But because of the traffic issues and everything else, I don't think all else is equal. You know, when you only have 1 minute and 40 seconds, another 40 seconds would be real nice. But 1 minute and 40 seconds is still going to be pretty spectacular.
But is there a center line near here?
The center line is the red one going down the middle there. So
You have interactive internet?
So this, right here, this is the path, right, from here to here, and the center line is that. And so in order to, just for a quick estimate of totality, you look parallel to here. So the center line, you've got that much shadow passing over you. Where down here, you have that much shadow passing over you. You know, you come down here and you got only a tiny bit. And
Okay, so if you're at the center line, what, you've got like 2.5 minutes, is that correct?
you said 220? She looked it up, so.
20, yep, and a minute 39 in Arco.
Minute 39? There are numerous websites that have time-elapse clocks, maps you can look at, you can plug in coordinates and it'll tell you exactly what you're going to find.
NASA has a very good interactive map that acts like Google Earth. You scroll in, it shows the boundary areas, the center line, and it's got coordinate base. So
And if you scroll over a location, it tells you the exact time, the amount of totality you'll get, and so on.
2 minutes, 13 seconds in Mackey.
2 minutes and 13
See, she's got the
seconds.
website pulled up already.
Good work. Okay. Last opportunity to ask a question. I'm sure Jeff will be here for a few minutes if you had something else you were dying to find out, but yes.
Michelle, do you have plans of doing this again? I mean, like, in the future?
this sort of thing?
Not as of yet, but again, this has been a very fluid process, and I think it will continue to be as the months move forward. I learned things tonight I didn't know already.
Yeah, I just want to add on that estimate of the number of people. It's really, there's really no good way to tell, but as it starts to get closer, you might be able to figure some things out. For example, maybe you should be working with somebody down in Salt Lake to do a poll. What 2 weeks ahead of time, what percentage of the people were planning to drive up this way or something like that, and you might be able to get a little bit better estimate that way. And I was also thinking about your 4th of July thing with the fireworks, what you were mentioning. If you don't want everybody to leave at once, maybe have a fireworks show that night.
Yes.
Has there been contact with INL? Are they going to participate in this in any way? Or there's a lot of resources there.
There are, and not that I'm aware of as of yet.
They're part of our regional team.
Part of the regional EMS team, at least. The one thing we didn't mention either, but we're encouraging employers, is that to consider doing a late start on Monday, calling Monday an unofficial once-in-a-lifetime Eclipse holiday. Are there things that we can do, because business traffic on top of Eclipse traffic is going to be that much more movement. If you've got a business that depends on shipping or transportation for it, there's going to be some challenges there too.
Just to add to that, I think this has a low probability of happening, but some of the astronomers are approaching Congress to try to have it designated as basically a special national day like that. And in terms of the labs, a lot of people, it just hasn't really hit their radar that much. It was interesting to hear that some of the other NASA people are already coordinated, because I hadn't heard about that. But for example, like Alvin is working with the space station folks to try to make sure it's in position to photograph the eclipse from space while it's going on. So.
Okay. On that note, thank you all very much for taking time to come out. Please watch for the bottom of your agendas, have all of the contact information for the website, email, Facebook. Please keep that information. Check back often for additional information. We may in fact choose to have some additional informational meetings as we get closer to the date, but we appreciate your time and your help with this. Thanks so much.